The rain came down in sheets, drowning out the muttering of the crowded street. In the alley near Oshodi Market, where broken stalls leaned like drunk men and gutters bubbled with filth, a woman sat against the wall, clutching a bundled infant wrapped in torn Ankara cloth. She didn't look up, not when passers-by hissed at her, not when the rain soaked through her braids, not even when the coins hit her thigh with a sharp, metallic clink. Take. That's all you're good for, anyway, the man barked. He was tall, pressed suit, gold chain around his wrist. A jaguar waited just meters away, idling beside a puddle that mirrored Lagos's gray sky. But all Alero saw was the flash of his eyes, the same eyes her son had, sharp, brown, cruel. She raised her head slowly. His name is Efe, she said, her voice barely rising above the rain. I named him after you. The man froze. The coins slipped from his hand and scattered like frightened insects. His name was Efe Owolabi, chairman of Owolabi and Sons Holdings, a man who once swore he didn't believe in fate, only ambition. But in that moment, everything, the street, the rain, the city's chaos, fell silent. He took a step back, then forward, then back again. What kind of joke is this? But Alara wasn't laughing. She shifted the bundle gently and unwrapped a corner. A boy's face stared up. Asleep, small mouth curled in the soft O of dreams. Thunder cracked. The baby startled but did not cry. Efe's mind splintered. Memories surged. 8 years ago, a university campus. Wine spilled on a red dress, stolen hours in an off-campus flat, the voice of a girl saying, "You'll remember me, even if you pretend not to," and then silence, because he had walked away, blocked her number, transferred to another school, built a fortress around his new name, his new life, his new empire. "You should leave," he said, hollow now. Alero did not move. "I did not come here for you. I came here because I had nowhere else, because my son is sick, and I will not let him die just so you can keep pretending we don't exist." A boy selling gala stopped beside them, curious. Efe's driver rolled down the window halfway. The market carried on, but for them, time stalled. "I'll send someone," he muttered. "Don't!" Alero stood now, her back straight despite the rain. "Either you carry him to the clinic yourself, or you watch him die. There is no in-between." He stared at the boy again. Something cracked open in him, something buried, something ancient, because Efe Owolabi was the grandson of Chief Adeyemi Owolabi, the Oba of Ireland, and in their lineage it was said, "The child you abandon will be the spirit that haunts your throne." His grandfather had told him that once, after too much palm wine and the burial of a second wife. Efe's chest tightened. "Get in the car," he said. Alero blinked. He turned to the driver. "Take us to St. Jude's, now." As the Jaguar pulled away from the curb, the gala boy stood watching, and far above them, hidden in the clouds, something old stirred. Something that had been waiting 8 years to return. The Jaguar sliced through the flooded streets of Lagos, like a shadow fleeing the sun. Inside, silence thickened between them. Alero cradled the child to her chest, eyes locked on the road ahead. Efe stared at his own hands, as if they were foreign. The wipers hissed. Outside, Okadas swerved through puddles, vendors screamed over the thunder, and life refused to pause for the unraveling of a man's legacy. At St. Jude's Clinic, the receptionist glanced up at the soaked trio, her expression shifting from irritation to confusion. Before she could speak, Efe dropped his business card onto the desk like a commandment. "Emergency. Private room, now." Within minutes, nurses rushed Alero and the baby inside. Efe remained in the waiting room, his eyes on the flickering ceiling fan, but his mind roamed elsewhere. He remembered her, not just the girl in the red dress, but her laughter, her questions, the way she refused to be impressed by his money. Back then, he was just F.A. the hustler, ambitious, calculating, always 2 steps ahead, until she saw through him, until she left a mark he had buried under deals and dividends. Now the mark had a name, a face. He stood, unable to sit still. The hallway smelled of dead-all and wet bodies. A door creaked open. Alero stepped out, her eyes tired but dry. They say he needs antibiotics, IV, bed rest. He'll live, but it won't be easy. F.A. nodded. I'll cover it. I'll get the best. He doesn't need your guilt. He needs your name. F.A. flinched. I never said he wasn't mine. You never had to. Her voice was low, but it struck like lightning. You disappeared before I could say I was pregnant. I looked for you. Your number changed. Your friends lied. Your name was already being printed on company letterheads. She sat beside him. Her voice softened. I raised him with stories. I told him his father was a traveler, helping people across the world. I said he sent us blessings through the wind. A long silence. Why lie? He asked. Because every child deserves a hero, and you weren't ready to be one. F.A. didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of truth suffocated him. Then Alero reached into her bag and pulled out a thin leather charm, strung with cowrie shells and red thread. His spirit has been restless, she said. Night fevers, shadows at the edge of his sleep. The priestess said he carries a wound of absence, a broken link. F.A. looked at the charm. You mean your blood called something awake? It watches him. It punishes the forgotten. A chill moved through him. He remembered the proverb, the child you abandon will be the spirit that haunts your throne. A sudden crash echoed from inside the clinic room. They rushed in. The baby thrashed on the bed, sweat pouring from his brow, his tiny hands clawing at the air. Alero began to chant, soft, ancient, rhythmic, Yoruba words F.A. hadn't heard in years. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with invocation.
Omo Orun, Omo Igbo, Omo Aye, mu peye pada, mu fioruko baba e peye pada. The lights flickered. The nurses gasped as the baby suddenly stilled. His hand clutching the charm F.A. hadn't even seen her place in his grip. Silence returned. Then the baby opened his eyes. Not the sleepy brown of before, but a sharp, golden hue, like flame caught in water. He stared at F.A., not as a baby, but as something older, something that had been waiting. Alero whispered, He knows. F.A.'s voice cracked. What is he? She didn't blink. He's yours. All of you. Even the parts you buried. And outside the clinic, thunder rolled like ancestral drums. That night, F.A. sat alone in the hotel room he'd booked near the clinic, far from the polished towers of Victoria Island, far from the leather chairs and glass walls of his boardrooms. Rain drummed steadily on the windows. The city below pulsed with life, but F.A. felt deadened. He stared at a folder on the bed. Inside were documents Alero had left with the nurse. F.A.'s name written in the father's section of the birth certificate, unsigned, 8 years late. And yet the space waited like a grave. He reached for his drink, but paused. The moment he touched the glass, he saw the boy's eyes again, burning gold, ancient, knowing. That wasn't a look a child should carry. It was the gaze of a spirit who'd watched generations rise and fall. There was a knock at the door. Alero stood there, dry now, wrapped in a faded shawl. Her voice was calm. He's asleep, but not at peace. The spirit around him hasn't left. It only paused. F.A. stepped aside. She walked in like someone stepping onto old soil, familiar, unwanted, necessary. She placed a calabash on the desk. Inside, white chalk, red cola, a strand of black hair tied in a knot. You have ancestors. You've forgotten them, but they haven't forgotten you. What does that have to do with my son? Everything, she said. F.A., you carry a curse your father passed on. The spirit in your son It's not just about absence, it's retribution. You expect me to believe this is some mystical payback? It's not belief, it's blood. It remembers what the mind wants to forget. Alero opened a small scroll from her bag. Yellowed parchment, ink drawn in sharp ancestral symbols. She pointed. Your grandfather, Chief Adeyemi, he had a child outside marriage, a daughter. She was cast out, said to be cursed. Her spirit swore vengeance on all Owolabi's sons who abandoned their own. Efe felt his skin cold. How do you know this? Because that daughter was my grandmother. Silence. Efe sat slowly, the weight of the world crushing his spine. So, this is what? A curse running through bloodlines? No, it's justice running on broken legs until someone stops to face it. He looked up. What do I do? Alero leaned in. You take your son to the ancestral shrine in Ikire land. You speak the names you erased. You pour libation. You ask forgiveness, not from me, but from the spirits. And if I don't, then he will live, but not grow, sleep, but never dream. And one day, he will call the same spirits on you. The power flickered. The calabash trembled. Outside, a gust of wind howled like a mourning woman. And the boy, far away in his hospital bed, turned in his sleep and whispered, Baba. The road to Ikire land twisted through ancient groves and red earth hills, where the trees whispered in languages older than steel and commerce. Efe hadn't returned in decades. The last time he had passed under the carved arch of the village gate, he was still a boy, gripping his mother's hand, afraid of goats and spirits.
Now he returned as a man, a father, with a sleeping child across his lap and a woman beside him who held his entire lineage in her silence. The sun was setting as they arrived. Bronze and blood spread across the sky. An old woman in white sat at the entrance to the shrine, carving bone into patterns only the ancestors would read. She didn't look up when Efe and Alero approached, nor when the baby stirred with a low whimper. You brought the broken root, the woman said. Efe stopped. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were clouded white, blind, but they pierced him more deeply than sight. I am Yalermisha Osena, she said. You come to beg the ground you spit upon. Efe opened his mouth, but the wind stole his words. Alero stepped forward. He comes to make it whole, and the child carries the weight of a curse born from forgotten kin. The priestess nodded. She stood, impossibly tall now, and motioned them through the beaded curtain of the shrine. Inside, the smell of camphor and bitter herbs choked Efe's lungs. Masks lined the walls, some smiling, some screaming. She gestured for Efe to kneel. Speak their names. Efe hesitated. Then, slowly, trembling, he began. Adeyemi, Owolabi, Oba Ovikeri land, Babami. You turned your back on your daughter. You told us she brought shame. But shame lives in silence, and silence has broken our house. The flame in the corner flared. I speak her name now. Omolara, daughter of Adeyemi, forgotten mother. I call you back. I ask mercy. I ask forgiveness. I give your name to my son, that he may carry it with honor. Thunder cracked outside. The baby whimpered, and the priestess handed Alero a calabash filled with river water and ashes. Alero dipped her fingers and smeared a mark across the boy's forehead. He is cleansed, but not yet free. She turned to Efe. One more thing remains. Alero reached into her wrapper and produced a blade, obsidian, old, wrapped in red cloth. Blood for blood, Osena said. The father must bleed, not to suffer, but to remember. Efe swallowed, then nodded. He took the blade, unwrapped it slowly, and cut across his palm. The blood fell onto a stone carved with ancient names. As the first drop touched, the shrine trembled. The baby gasped and cried out, not in pain, but in release. His voice was high, piercing, alive. And then the wind stopped. The flame calmed. The air held peace. Yalarisha Osena closed her eyes. It is done. The child walks freely. The ancestors rest. Efe knelt before his son. The golden hue had faded from the boy's eyes, replaced by a soft brown. He reached up and touched his father's bleeding hand. Alero watched, tears silent. Later, under the moonlight, as they prepared to leave, Efe turned to Alero. I don't know how to be a father, but I want to learn. She looked at him long and full. Then start with his name. Say it. He looked down at the child, sleeping now in his arms. Omolafe Owolabe, child who survives fate. Above them, an owl cried once, then flew toward the trees. And in the earth beneath the shrine, the stones hummed with silence.